Peterson has been telling people to clean their room for years. And if you hear that without any context, it can sound pretty ridiculous. Your life is chaotic, you don't know what you're doing with your career, you are directionless, you don't quite know what you're doing, finances are a mess, you're struggling to get yourself together. Clean your room. I was cleaning my studio today and realised, there is a huge point behind this. And it's something I've known for a while, and it's something I recognise and realise many times over. I genuinely operate differently when the space I live in is in order. I think more clearly, I procrastinate less, I find it easier to start doing work or to do the work I need to do, and I feel more in control of everything else in life. I don't think the lesson is about cleaning. It's not going to teach you how to be a professional cleaner. That's not the idea. There is a deeper thing going on here. Before trying to bring order to the entire world, bring some order to the small part of your life that you can actually control. When your environment is chaotic, you're constantly surrounded by unfinished jobs, clothes on the floor, cups in the sink, things you haven't put away, a dusty corner, whatever it is, rubbish that needs throwing out. Everything kind of gives you that mind frame of, well, I'll deal with that later, I'll deal with the dusty corner later, I'll deal with the clothes later, and eventually later becomes normal, but then you clean your room, you make the bed, you clear the dusty corner, you clear your desk, you put everything where it belongs, or you find a place for it to belong to, and suddenly you've created one small area of your life that isn't fighting against you anymore. And that's important, because when life feels overwhelming, people try to solve everything at once, which is impossible. They want to fix their career, they want to fix their finances, their body, their relationships, their mind, their confidence, their entire future. And the size of the problem becomes so overwhelming that nothing gets done. But maybe you don't need to fix your life tonight. Maybe you just need one win. You might not be able to completely change your career in the next 20 minutes. You probably can't repair your broken relationship right now. You can't suddenly, double or triple or quadruple the money in your bank account, but you can clean the room you're sitting in. You can clean your house, you can clean a corner, you can begin now, putting order into your life. And it gives you something incredibly useful. It gives you a tiny piece of evidence that you can still act in a positive way for yourself. There is a standards element to all of this, and it kind of ties into the video I made yesterday about standards, not yesterday, 2 days ago. A tidy room isn't going to magically fix everything in your life, but it does say I'm not going to live surrounded by unnecessary chaos when I have the ability to change that, And I think when you gain that mentality, it then spreads into other areas of your life. A clean house might make it easier to be productive. A clean kitchen might make it more appealing and easier to access a healthier meal. Having your training gear ready or organized, easily accessible, might make going to the gym that bit easier. Your environment doesn't create discipline for you, but it can support good behavior. It can either support good behavior or create friction against it. So when Mr. Peterson says, your room, I don't think the room itself is necessarily the point. The point is learning to create order somewhere, and your room is probably going to be the place in which you can create order. You can't necessarily change everything in the outside world or in your work environment, but you can start at home. Learning to take responsibility for something that's directly in front of you is going to be one right step in the right direction for taking responsibility of your life. So if your life feels chaotic right now, don't start by trying to fix everything. Start ridiculously small and take a ridiculously small win, even if it's just a cupboard that needs reorganizing and decluttering or whatever it is. Make the bed, clean the desk, mop the floors, clean the dusty corner, throw the rubbish away. Create a small area that's to a high standard in order. Then decide what the next thing is, because sometimes changing your life doesn't begin with some huge motivational breakthrough. Sometimes it begins by literally fixing and cleaning your room. Subscribe for more honest commentary on modern life, more honest conversations about discipline, rebuilding, and all things similar. This is Jake O'Neill Talks, honest commentary on modern life.